It's Combine Week, NFL Scouting Combine, and it's very important. And maybe not for the position we're going to watch today, but I kind of wanted to get through with it today so we can maybe talk about the more important positions, once we have the Combine information as this week includes. This is Bengals on the Brain. I'm Joe Goodberry, part of the Cincinnati Bengals Talk YouTube network, where we've got you covered on everything, I think. Anyway, we're talking running backs today. Draft eligible running backs. Not free agency. Not, maybe we'll start there. Yeah, we got Joe Mixon and his $12 million cap hit, and the Bengals could save $7 to $10 million, depending on how they want to do it. You got Tyjae Spears, who's a free agent. What's his worth? Is it $2 million a year? Is it $4 million a year? And can you keep both of those guys at that hit? I don't think you can. And is either guy the number one or the guy you want for this type of offense? I don't think so. So what do you want out of this running back room in a Joe Burrow-led, wide receiver-heavy offense? What do you need out of that position? Number one, I think you need a guy that can run out of shotgun very comfortably. You don't want to have to get under center, right? If we watch the first couple weeks of the season, when they're trying to have half their offense under center, half their offense shotgun, it was too easy to tell what they were doing. And it made it very hard for them to disguise and have one singular offense and hit the levels of efficiency they eventually got to. Once they put everything in shotgun and went from there, they were a much better offense. And the run game was better, but it wasn't as explosive, right? So how do you get the explosive runs? Because ultimately we want to get explosive passes down the field. PFF says if you have one explosive play in a drive, you are 4 times, let me get that straight. Is it better this way? 4 times more likely to score a touchdown on that drive. Or is it just score? It's just score. Now that I got it off to the side. 4 times more likely to score on a drive if you have one explosive play. The Bengals didn't have enough last year. From being one of the most explosive offenses you've ever seen in 2021, carrying them to the Super Bowl, they got super efficient because they couldn't hit that explosive play anymore. How do you get it back? How do you get the safeties off of Ja'Marr Chase and T. Higgins? Well, the only way you're going to scare defensive coordinators and get them out of that shell is if they're scared of your explosive plays over the middle. Maybe that's when we talk about tight end, maybe a more explosive slot receiver. Or by running the ball, not just effectively, because the Bengals were very effective and efficient last year running the ball. 4 yards a carry, 5 yards a carry, even 6, as we saw in the Bills game, is not enough to get them out of the too high safety shell. It's got to be a chunk. You got to hit a 25-yarder. You got to hit a 35-yarder. You got to rip one maybe all the way. Split those safeties. Make one miss. Scare them with your speed. And if you can do that, that's when defensive coordinators will get out of that shell and give you one-on-one coverage once again with your stud receivers. So that makes running back in need no matter what the salary would be for P. Ryan and Mixon. Because they need to get more explosive. They need to get more elusive. It'd be better if you could have a guy that could be a weapon as a pass receiver as well as a blocker. Because I think Mixon is a good receiver. They don't trust him in blocking, apparently. P. Ryan, good blocker. Not explosive as a receiver, right? He's just a guy there. If you can find a guy to do both, that would be perfect, while being able to run out of shotgun, be a little more elusive, and have breakaway speed and home run ability. That's what we're looking for. But what we're not going to do is we're not going to start with Bijan Robinson of Texas. I'll be honest with you. He's too good. If he's there at 28, and we'll take 10 to 20 seconds on this. If he's there at 28, he's probably the best player on the board by far. If we're not looking at positional value, I think he's going to be that good, or at least grade that well. So let's not talk about him because I don't think he'll be there. If we have to talk about him after the draft, then we will. He's that good. So what can you find in rounds 2, rounds 3, 4, 5, 6? How late do you want to go? The Bengals have drafted running backs when they've looked for their future bell cow or their next starter. It's been in round 2. They really haven't taken swings in the mid rounds other than Mark Walton. Maybe you can call Travion Williams in the end of the 5th a mid-round pick. I'd say that's more of a late rounder. A few 6th and 7th rounders are not going to cut it. We would like to get the Isaiah Pacheco that late. It's still a rare thing. It's still a low percentage thing. So are we talking rounds 2, 3, 4, and 5? I think we are. And I think I've got some guys here today to start us off.
Jahmyr Gibbs out of Alabama, number 1, right there, standing at 5'11", 200 pounds. Well, that's his listed weight until we get it at the combine. 21 years old. He is 27th on the consensus big board right now. Very good receiver, very electric runner, big play guy, long speed. I was talking about him on Twitter, and I had a bunch of my favorite Twitter draft evaluators, guys like Dane Brugler of The Athletic, Matt Waldman of the rookie scouting portfolio, and Jordan Reed of ESPN, all chime in how much they love the guy and that he is explosive, fast, obviously, but Jordan Reed was the one that said Jamal Charles. And I was like, whoa. If you don't know, if you're, maybe you're young, check out Jamal Charles, put him in YouTube, and you'll see long runs like this pretty consistently. But his production profile puts him in the 89th percentile. Breakaway percentage, meaning runs over 15 yards. 53% of his runs went over 15 yards at Alabama. Pretty high number amongst this class. His elusive rating is just a 99.1 per PFF, which it's not a 1 to 100 scale thing. So 99 is about average. And I think that happens because he just outruns angles rather than actually makes them miss. But I think he's a really good inside zone runner. He reads really well, reads that middle linebacker and cuts off him, and can really make defenders pay when they're over aggressive. Very natural hands, turns into a runner seamlessly, transitions very seamlessly. He's got a glider type of stride to him where it almost doesn't look like he's running that fast just because of the way he moves very effortlessly. And I believe if you get a guy like this, now we'll talk about the value at some point, but if you add a guy like this to your team where it's a home run threat at running back, that changes the dynamic of the offense. It changes how much defensive coaches will play with a second safety, so far back. So I think it's worth looking at a guy like this and watching him run his routes out of the backfield. Here's a great route and a great example. I mean, if you could do this and the guy's going to pick up chunk plays, you're going to kill cover 2 defenses. And the thing I really like about Gibbs is that he's got full control over that speed dial. He's just not a guy that has to hit 100 miles an hour right away. He will slow it down. He'll speed it up. He'll be patient and then explode through the hole. And I think that's what you have to be to be a complete runner. We've seen fast guys before, but what makes them different? What makes the Chris Johnsons and the Jamal Charles work? I think it's the vision and the body control and ability to turn it up and down.
Yeah, I start us with Jahmyr Gibbs, even though if he's 27th on the consensus big board, does that mean you got to consider him at 28? I don't think so, right? Because there's a difference between Bijan Robinson being graded here and Gibbs being graded here. And you're picking here, and a guy is still available here, then he was always destined to be in that range, which makes Gibbs very unlikely to be there at 60. Now, this is before the combine, but if we expect him to run really fast and look really good in shorts, which I think we do, maybe that pushes him up a little bit to 20 on the big board, consensus big board. We don't know what the Bengals look like. We're just using media boards to put together and see where a guy may be taken. So maybe Gibbs isn't there at all. Maybe he's never even an option. Sometimes the stars just don't align. You just never have a chance for a guy that you might really like. And I do like Jahmyr Gibbs. So we go to the next guy. Who's like him, but then maybe we can get around later. And that's where we come to Tyjae Spears finally.
Tyjae Spears out of Tulane. We got a guy here that is 5'9" and 5/8 and 204 pounds. We know these exact measurements because he was participating at the Senior Bowl, which I thought he stood out there. And that was the first time we saw him. If you remember, we had a couple clips. Well, now we've got some film. I remember showing this broadcast angle of this play right here. But now we've got the film to see at multiple angles and see the whole play develop. But Tyjae would be 22 years old as a rookie. He is 97th on the consensus big board, so we're talking third round as of right now. We'll see how the combine may change that. I expect him to test very, very well. He looks like a high-end athlete with good speed, probably not as good as Jahmyr Gibbs, but the next tier under that, which is completely fine. You're still getting a breakaway percentage above 50%, and you're getting an elusive rating, I think, with Spears. This is a PFF thing again, at 146, so 50 points higher almost than Jahmyr Gibbs. And I think that's because I see a more creative runner in Spears, a guy that maybe sets up his defenders a little bit more, will string moves together, whether that's like a stiff arm, swat it, spin, then a juke, right? And then that's how he gets off. Here's a good example of breaking 3 tacklers on one play. But I think that's what Spears offers, is a very creative runner with home run ability, plus versatility. I think he's a really good receiver. I think he's really good after the catch. And I also think he's a willing blocker. I remember when we showed some clips from the Senior Bowl episode of this, where we said, yeah, he got beat a little bit, then he looked good. Actually, on tape, I think he actually looked a little bit better than just good. I don't think he's asked to do as much as like the Bijan Robinsons or even the Jahmyr Gibbs in terms of processing. I even think Zach Charbonnet does a little bit more in terms of processing. But Spears is definitely asked to block, and even sometimes block for an end around for a receiver or for a fellow running back with him. And you'll see a couple of really nice blocks. I don't think I actually put them in here. But we got one coming up right on cue. A nice little blitz pickup. Ball comes out. I just want to see if he can hold up. Remember, he's 200 pounds. Okay, so you want to see, is the guy willing? Giovanni Bernard type. Is he willing? Is he smart enough to pick up a blitzer, maybe coming from a different look? And he does both right there. And here we got another long run, explosive run. If he gets to the edge, he's dangerous. And he's not one of those speed backs that has to get to the edge. Well, I got 2 plays in a row here that are showing that. He will cut it up inside and will run with power. They use him in the Wildcat a lot, and you pretty much have to run between the tackles in the Wildcat. And he's willing to do it. So here he is versus Cincinnati doing it. Here he is where there's nothing there at all, and he makes a hole and then makes the safeties miss. This is big time.
Spears is interesting because I look at like Daniel Jeremiah of NFL Network, NFL.com. He's not in his top 100 players. So is the consensus right? 97th. That would be right at the end of the third round. Man, if you can go O-line, tight end, running back, that's a lot of offensive picks. I'd like a corner in there somewhere. I'd like a D lineman in there somewhere. But if it fell that way, and you just secured all of the offensive needs at tackle, say you got a starting right tackle at 28, you get a tight end in round 2 that can maybe he starts right away, or maybe he splits with whatever veteran you bring in, and then you bring a Tyjae Spears in the third round to pair with Mixon or Pirine. I like this offense a lot more. I mean, that sounds like a pretty complete offense in a lot of ways, especially if they all hit, which, maybe they do or maybe they don't. Well, the Bengals go in that direction. I think the pick of Giovanni Bernard gives me hope that they are okay taking a smaller type, home run type back. But I feel like in round 2, if that's the path they go, because of the history given of taking the Kenny Irons, I know that didn't work, but Kenny Irons in round 2, Gio in round 2, Jeremy Hill in round 2, and Joe Mixon in round 2, it kind of feels like that's where they'd like to do it. Which brings me to my next guy that's ranked in the 60s on the consensus board, and I don't expect him to test well. All he has to do is be average, slightly above average. Maybe he's got good agility scores. That's Zach Charbonnet out of UCLA. Is he an option for round 2? Let's take a look.
Zach Charbonnet, number 24 for UCLA. Listed at 6'1" and 220 pounds. He's going to be the biggest running back we look at and talk about today, and probably the one that fits the Bengals' bell cow mold the most. He is currently 66 on the consensus big board, which means we're talking about him at the back end of round 2 as of now. We got to see how he runs and tests and all that, yada, yada. But we're talking about a guy with great vision, some size and power to him, good enough receiver, good enough pass protector, and a very, very good shotgun runner. In fact, I think after Bijan Robinson, the best inside runner for shotgun is Zach Charbonnet. And Really, my biggest knock on Charbonnet is that he doesn't have the long speed. So he's definitely the slowest of the four guys we're going to talk about today. You see he's breaking off a run right here, but that's because he broke a few tackles. He made it past that first wave, made guys miss the second wave. His elusive rating for PFF is a 122. So not as high as Tyjae Spears, but not as low as Jahmyr Gibbs. He has to actually make guys miss in order to break a long run, right? Because he doesn't have that raw, long speed. His production profile puts him in the 67th percentile, and his breakaway percentage, 45% of his runs went over 15 yards or more. And this is, you want to be in that range, 45, 50. You want to get above that if you can. Joe Mixon was in that. Giovanni Bernard, the best running backs the Bengals have drafted recently, have all been in that range. Now, when I look at Charbonnet, not only do I see a powerful guy with great vision, I see a manipulative runner. Someone who, while I try to fumble the word, manipulates the second level defender to make him carry further than he should, make him get outside further than he should, make him take the underneath route when he shouldn't, and then make him pay for it. So he forces these guys by pressing the hole, by just little jabs and little course corrections, I should say, to where the running back or the linebacker thinks the running back's cutting it up or bouncing it out, and so they end up playing outside of their structure, outside of what they feel comfortable with, and Zach Charbonnet makes them pay for it. I think he's a total package as a bell cow type back.
I could see it. I think he fits a lot of things. You would still, because I stress the explosiveness. So yeah, you would get maybe someone that pass protects better as the bell cow, right? Maybe not a better protector than P. Ryan now, because it's hard to project. But as Mixon as the bell cow guy, if he's here as a pass protector, maybe Charbonnet can be better. Charbonnet should be more elusive based on the data. I think even on tape, maybe more elusive. Just different running style. Where Mixon tries to run over guys, Charbonnet is consistently trying to separate himself with stiff arms and swipes and has good balance for a guy who runs kind of upright. Reminds me of Ryan Matthews, if you remember him. Jordan Howard, if you remember him. These guys didn't have long careers, but they had good year or two in the NFL. It kind of reminds me of them. Maybe that's why he's a second rounder. But without the long speed, though, does that ever really scare defenses? Does it ever really get them out of the too high shell if the guy's not busting off a 55-yarder? It's hard to say. I kind of still want that. So even with a Charbonnet in round 2, there's a lot of running backs in this class, especially some guys with some speed. Maybe you're still there in the 5th and 6th and thinking, maybe we take another one. Maybe we double dip at running back and these are our 4 guys for the next 2 years if we hit. That'd be nice. That'd be really nice. Save money at that position. Spend resources. That's the balance. The last guy we have today, probably my top 5 funnest players that I've watched so far. I think everyone would probably agree. I haven't heard anybody say they don't like this guy. It's hard not to just sit back and watch him, and I implore you to put it on YouTube and just enjoy a few games. Deuce Vaughn, man, this guy is a football player. He's just born in the wrong body. He would have been a great linebacker. He would have been a tremendous safety with a few more inches and a few more cheeseburgers. But let's take a look.
How can you not love watching Deuce Vaughn from K-State? Not only is he incredibly tiny, but he's extremely fun and tough and explosive and elusive and everything you really would want. But he's so tiny. I mean, we're talking about a guy that's 5'6" and 176 pounds. It's funny, when I went back and looked at the smallest running backs over the last decade or so, the Bengals had 2 of them on their team. Both guys they tried to convert to different positions, whether it be wide receiver or kick returner or even DB. Ontario McCaleb, if you remember him from Auburn, and Puka Williams. And those are late round guys and undrafted types. So will the Bengals be in position to take a guy who's currently 157 on the consensus big board, which we're talking, that means 4th, maybe 5th round? Man, I like him for the 5th round. I mean, he'll be a 22-year-old rookie, so that's perfectly within the range. His breakaway percentage is at 43%, so the lowest of these four guys today. Elusive rating, 44 from PFF, the lowest of all these guys today. And the reason that's so low is because I think he's an elusive runner, but it's because he's easy to tackle at that size. You get a hand on him, and you're going to bring him down. The problem is it's hard to get a hand on him. But his production profile is the 99.7%. You can't have a better production profile than Deuce Vaughn. And Deuce Vaughn's a great receiver. He does everything you want. He will block. Of course, he's not going to be great at it, but he will put his shoulder in there. He will hit. He will do what it's required and will do what's asked of him and with breaking runs. We're talking 5th round. I would take that. Like, could you pair this guy with Samaje Perine and get more out of the passing game and more out of the shotgun runs? Yeah, definitely you could. I'm not saying give him the ball 300 times, obviously, but he could help this Bengals team. He's a really good player, pound for pound, and he's fun. So what do I do with that? Maybe he's not Darren Sproles, because that's going to be the guy everyone compares him to, but Sproles was 190 at that height. Well, that's a lot of thickness. Maybe he's Tariq Cohen, who was a really good player for the Bears for a while.
Can I get Zach Charbonnet in round 2 and Deuce Vaughn in round 5? Now we're talking, right? Now we've got a bigger guy. Both can run out of shotgun. Both can play in the passing game. One gives you the explosive element. One's got the bigger body and size and kind of running style of a bell cow type. Do we want to spend 2 picks on running back? It's a deep class. It's a very, very deep class. I think the rounds 2 through 5 kind of reminds me of the Joe Mixon year, where Mixon and Dalvin Cook and Alvin Kamara go in the 2nd round. You got guys like Aaron Jones all the way in day 3. Go look at the undrafted guys in that class. It is a really good running back class. What was that, 2017? Yeah, that was a John Ross pour one out year for that one. So I think that could push guys back a round or 2. Maybe get a Deuce Vaughn in the 6th. Now we're talking value. I want more picks. How do we get more picks? Trade some of these guys? Trade back? Yeah, I want more picks. Few guys I didn't get to talk about today because I'm either waiting on film, waiting on testing, and just didn't feel like I could get to it. I've watched 12, 13 running backs now. Yes. And I've got 9 with what I would say premium day grades. So day 1 or day 2, premium pick grades. 9 of them. Do I think that many running backs go in that range? I don't. Maybe? No, I don't think so. So that pushes guys into the 4th round. That'll push guys in the 5th round. Like Deuce Vaughn. I know he's not going to go in the top 3 rounds. I looked at the size for smaller backs and where they typically go. 3rd is the very most at the very end. It's mostly 4th, 5th round. So if that's what it is for Deuce Vaughn, that's fine. But the one guy who really caught my eye, and I'm glad people suggested I go watch him, and they kept hammering me with it until I watched him. And there's a few other too that we'll get to. My brain's scattered right now. Israel Abanikanda out of Pitt. Make sure you watch him versus Virginia Tech. Probably the best game of any running back I've watched so far this year. I think he has 6 touchdowns. I mean, just an absolute stellar game. This guy is 99 speed in Madden. And he's 5'11", 215, so he has some size to him. I think 3rd round for Abanikanda makes a lot of sense because this guy can hit home runs. You see a long run I posted against Tennessee where he's got to make 2 guys miss, sort of. I mean, they're coming at bad angles because he's so fast, and he like bounces off both and just rips it up the field. 76 yards, I want to say, 67, something like that. Insane speed. At that size. Not the most flexible, not the most lateral explosive player. Didn't get used a lot, I believe, in the passing game either, so you really don't know, even though his hands look fine. I didn't want to talk this much about him because I want to save it for when the Bengals pick him, and we can go over it. Yeah, I think this is a very, very strong class, and the Bengals would be making a mistake to not take advantage of it. That's 1 pick in the mid-rounds, maybe 2. Overall, I don't mean 2 picks in the mid-rounds. it got me really excited watching this class. I suggest you guys do the same. Hope you enjoyed today's videos. Remember, again, you can always find more on Twitter at Joe Goodberry. Remember that. There's going to be a lot that I can't put in here because it'll be broadcast angles and YouTube will kill us. So that stuff goes to Twitter. I watch the broadcast and the All-22 because I like to see the HD replays. I like to know how to pronounce their names, like Abanikanda, Charbonnet, things like that. So I watch the broadcast as well as the All-22. But I can only play the All-22 here. So make sure you follow me on Twitter. Make sure you get over there and see what we're posting. See what ends up on the cutting room floor. I made a lot of references to the data points I used today that will be unveiled at some point in the future in terms of what our draft board looks like. And I'm doing that with a lot of different people. You want to be on Twitter for that. So thank you if you're already following me. Hit the like and subscribe to get, and notifications, all that, so you know when this is uploading. And maybe we got some shorts coming along to really recap the NFL Combine. So look out for those too as well. I'd like to do that. Until next time, guys.